Fred Zinkie earlier this week proposed to me, is it possible to load up on starting pitchers early, wait on closers until the trade deadline comes and take advantage of all the closer situations that open up, and then stack heavy relievers to catch up ground in closing? We're going to talk about that coming up on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We are brought to you by the DraftKings Pick 6 app. Use code RWPicks to get a free get 50 free Pick 6 credits as far as along with your deposit. Let's talk, Fred, about some baseball here. Obviously, we are going to be talking about closers today, and you proposed the question. I'll let you frame it, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah, so we were kind of messaging back and forth Sunday night as we were working on our bids, and I mentioned that I feel like what's happened this year happens every year to varying degrees, but happens every year where there are a slew of new closer options in August and in September, but especially in August, and everybody or a lot of people are out of FAAB. So those options end up being really cheap. So if one save option becomes available in like May, he's $400 or $400 FAAB. But I'm finding right now, lately, you can get potential save sources for 10, 20, 30, maybe 50. And which means you could get 3 of them for 100 or something like that. So if you just have a little bit of FAAB left, you can do a lot with your potential save situation, which then I kind of branched off and I mentioned to you that I've wondered this before, like, would it be possible to draft pretty much all starting pitchers, roll pretty much all starting pitchers until the trade deadline, hold some FAAB back with the plan of using, say, $150 in FAAB after the trade deadline and rolling 3 or 4 closers for the final 2 months of the season, knowing that along the way you'll probably lose some pitchers and then you won't have to try to really replace them with starting pitchers. You're going to replace them with relievers.
Yeah, I think that one, you said a critical point there. You have to hold FAAB back, because if you're going to try to take advantage of this fluid market, well, you have to have more, you have to actually get these guys. You have to have the currency to do that, which means maybe like in April and May, you don't bid a whole lot on these emerging closers. That can be tricky, because what if is obviously 4 months of saves is better than 2 months of saves. And you're going to want to get those guys, but I think one of the things that you kind of have to take it from this is there aren't that many sure things among these.
That's right. But the closers, I find the potential closers that we're bidding 400. First of all, I know listening to you and Scott on Monday, when I was listening Monday morning, you guys were talking about, and I agree with this, that there weren't any or many as the season went along this year. Yeah. Like as far as like potential guys that you could bid $300 or $400 on, there weren't really any, or like I say, or very many.
There was Kirby Yates was a good one.
Yeah.
That one really worked if you got him. But yeah, I'm sure there's a couple others that we're probably not mentioning properly or giving proper credence, but those were the big one. That was the big one.
Right. So I feel like if you're going to have a plan, you have to go through with it full force. So the plan would have to be that you're going to draft a lot of starting pitchers, and therefore you're not going to spend a lot of FAAB on starting pitchers throughout the season because you've got a lot of starting pitchers to rotate. So hopefully you don't spend much FAAB on starting pitchers. And then your plan is that you're not going to bid significantly on closers until the trade deadline. I would push it up a bit, actually, like a week or 2 before the trade deadline, if you want to try to grab like this, the new Marlins, like when Tanner Scott was on the block, things like that. Yeah. If you want to start messing around at that point, it doesn't mean that during the first 4 months you can't bid. So I had a league where I got Kirby Yates for like $1, like the week before he became the closer. So it doesn't mean you can't grab relievers speculative for $1, for $10, whatever. But it means you're not going to bid on them and you're not going to make a push on saves. I wonder if
can I say one other thing?
Yeah, go
also
ahead.
Means that you're not going to invest much of draft capital on them either. I think that's right. The whole point. You're not buying that 4th round closer, that 9th round closer, 11th round closer. Those are all either hitters or starters instead. Yeah. And you're probably going 8-1 in terms of like if you have a 9-man pitching staff. Obviously head-to-head leagues, it's a little different. It's a lot different. It's
Yeah.
a viable strategy, just a punt. And you don't have to catch up
Yeah.
in season. But I still think it's going to be tough overall in an overall contest sort of format. I think in your league, I think you can. It's a little bit more viable. You're stealing 5-6 points. You're not getting to third place in saves in your leagues if you do this.
That's right. So it's more about winning a single league than winning an overall contest. And I agree. I think the plan would probably be to go 8-1. So you're going to use one pick probably somewhere in the first 10 rounds on a reliever, and then so that's going to get you hopefully a base of about 40, 35. Nowadays we should probably say 35, 33 saves, and then you're going to do your last 2 months plan where you try to rocket up the save standings and possibly help your ratios, hopefully, with the closers. So your plan would be that at the trade deadline, you're first place in wins, you're first place in strikeouts. Hopefully you've drafted the right starting pitching, because you're not going cheap on starting pitching with this plan. You're just investing almost all of your resources in starting pitching. Your pitching resources in starting pitching with this plan. So hopefully your ratios are doing okay. And then, we can talk tonight about how many closers. And, like I say, I haven't done like a 10-year study on the whole thing, but I do find that every year I'm sitting in a spot where at the trade deadline and just after the trade deadline, there's a bunch of possible or probable new closers on waivers, and they're not expensive. And I'm actually just like, I don't need, like this week I barely bid on Sir Anthony Dominguez, because it's like I just got a bunch of closers in the last couple of weeks. Like I don't really need any more closers.
Yeah.
And to be in that situation is just really odd. So is there a way to take advantage of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I could be not doing it justice. If you go 8-1, 8-1, 8-1, and then 5-4 down the stretch, or even 4-5.
It should even out.
Yeah. It's just, you're just beholden to the whims of save chances. You're hoping that you get the right guys. Obviously, you're hoping that the team presents enough chances. And I think that's the tricky part, but you're also 4 months into the season. So there's more definition. Like you're not guessing on the job battles as you're doing at the draft table. It might be a war of attrition on individual bullpens. Some bullpens have kind of worn themselves out at that point. So, okay, well, it's not going to be this guy. I don't have to have Craig Kimbrell all year. I can just kind of swoop in and get Dominguez there. Dominguez gave up a homer the other day to the Mets. Epic walk-off from Francisco Alvarez. How does that, are you concerned? How concerned are you about him closing going forward?
I don't think he's like one of the league's best closers, but it's such a good situation in Baltimore.
Yeah.
As far as they're one of the best teams in baseball, and Kimbrell can't go back into that role right now. So unless they're going to go back to Cano, and they don't seem to want to use Cano in that role. So I think Dominguez, he didn't blow a save. I think he didn't give up like a grand slam or something, where he's given up, a bunch of base runners first or something. Like he gave up a home run, not good, but I think he's got a chance. I'm not that worried about him in the role yet. He's pitched well with Baltimore. He's got a 14-3 strikeout to walk. I think it's just kind of bad timing. As I said, Baltimore, it's a great spot. Like 30, what do we got here? 31, 35, 37 saves. 37 saves for the Orioles so far this year. Man, if Craig Kimbrell had just been able to keep his act together out of those 37 saves.
How many times in the last 5 years have we said that?
Yeah. 5? It's interesting. I had Kimbrell on a bunch of teams. I did pull him from my starting lineup a couple weeks ago, so I didn't endure the past couple of weeks, but you got 23 saves. If you pulled him from your lineup the past couple of weeks, you got an ERA in the mid threes. You got 6 wins. He wasn't actually like a totally terrible pick. He had 64 strikeouts in about a little over half a season. So he wasn't his whip's 121 this year. And again, if you pulled him the last couple weeks, you got a better whip than that. So it wasn't totally terrible. You didn't get the grand prize, which I was hoping for 40 saves as the Orioles closer, but it wasn't the worst pick I made this year.
No, it wasn't. So we're going to go through some of these bullpens because there's so many of them. How big were you on the Ryan Walker sweepstakes there for the Giants? Because that was the rare situation where the manager just flat out named the closer. That usually doesn't happen.
Agreed. That was my preferred situation. And I found Walker to be fairly affordable between all the chaos of the trade deadline and other players that people were targeting, maybe hitters or starting pitchers, for various reasons, maybe rookies who had just been brought up and things like that. I think that maybe was the Kobe Mayo week. I can't exactly remember. It's all a blur now, but anyways, there were other things, but I felt like Walker was like an A+ situation in the sense of the Giants they're not the Orioles, but they're good enough to give their closer some save chances. He's been amazing this year. And they sent the other closer down to the minors. So it's not like Duvall's looking right over his shoulder. And then, like you said, they turned immediately to Walker and said, he's our closer. And I'm not worried about Walker because Jordan Hicks got a save last night because Walker had thrown 2 innings the day before. So Walker is definitely down last night. So like, whatever, it's bad timing if you had Walker that he got a win on Sunday and pitched 2 scoreless. You can't complain too much about that. But then it cost him a save yesterday. But anyways, they said he's the closer. He's been pitching great. I think he's, I don't know, whatever, a top 10 closer for the rest of the season. Like there's really nothing to worry about here unless you think they're going to bring Duvall back up. I doubt Walker will pitch poorly and give up the job. So
yeah,
he was my number one target. There's other really good ones that have come in the last 3 weeks or so, but he was my number one target.
The Cubs DFA'd Hector Neris. The Cubs have been kind of going through a lot of different options right now. It's been kind of hard to kind of pinpoint which one. That probably kind of makes it hard for our strategy purposes, but at the same time, do you have a preference there?
Well, I've been trying to digest this, and like at least we don't have to worry about it too much until Sunday in a lot of leagues. But for leagues where you could go sooner, so Jorge Lopez has had a pretty good season for the Cubs. He's got a 2.44 ERA. He's got 3 saves. He's got 1 save with the Cubs. He had a couple saves with the Mets earlier in the year. So Lopez, I think, is an option to be their closer. I don't like Porter Hodge, but he's only 23. I don't know if they put him in the closer role. Like they might go committee for a while, but if they just wanted to take like a veteran who they're not going to have to pay down the road because he gets some saves late in the year, then Lopez, I think, could be the guy. It's interesting that we've had so many teams turn their save situation over, and then the Cubs come along at the end of it all and are like, oh, by the way, we're just going to DFA our closer. And here's another
Hodge did get the save tonight, as Uncle Ted points out. And some people were speculating on Hodge. Of course,
Hodge is probably the best of them.
Yeah. And, we've probably speculated on 6 or 7 different replacements in that Cubs bullpen, including like talking about the idea of Julian Merriweather at one point in time too. The evergreen, like if he could only stay healthy guy.
Yeah, I think Hodge actually, I didn't realize because I was kind of getting some notes together for tonight's show, but I didn't realize Hodge got the save tonight. That would obviously put him up into the forefront, at least for now. Like I said, I wondered if they'd take someone so young and start building his arbitration value by having him get saves right now in a season where they're not going to make the playoffs. But maybe they will. Maybe they'll give him a try and see if maybe this could be their closer going forward. So again, we might have another exciting, if they go with Hodge, he's got going into tonight, he had a 2.15 ERA and a .89 whip, plenty of strikeouts. So here's another guy. Again, I wouldn't put him with Ryan Walker and maybe a few others that we're going to talk about tonight, but I put him below Dominguez, for example, but he could be another guy. Who knows? Out of all these guys, as you said, save chances are so fickle. He could get plenty of them the rest of the way. Yep.
Another one that just opened up is the Rays. Pete Fairbanks is on the IL. They traded away other bullpen guys. Shane Baz pitched a gem tonight, went 7 2/3. Edwin Ucheta just came into the game with 2 outs in the 8th inning. That's 1-0 in that one. We'll see if he continues in the 9th, but he's been very good so far. .94 ERA, .59 whip, 35-4 K to walk.
Right. So here's another guy. If they want to use him in that role, all of a sudden with those skills, he's got to be in the top. If they went with him, he's got to be in the top half of the league for closer options. With those skills, I mean, he certainly seems skilled enough to hold the role. So we could have another one. So there you go.
He just got out of the 8th, so very minimal pitch count there too. So
pretty good chance he can come back out there.
Yeah. So we may have a new closer there.
Right, and you said it was picked up in some leagues on Sunday because the news on Fairbanks came out like later on Sunday, but in time for FAAB runs. But
AL Tout Wars, let me tell you, The top 4 options in that Rays bullpen behind Fairbanks were already owned.
Oh gosh.
Uchetta was rostered. All the other guys.
As he should be. I mean, in an
Yeah.
AL only with a 35 to 4 strikeout to walk, he should be in someone's lineup.
Yeah, that's like a Doug Dennis type of guy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm guessing he's the guy that has him, but we'll see. But it's pretty funny.
But yeah, there could be a couple more. You could have Rays and Cubs closer options again this Sunday. So kind of the FAAB gods are saying, hey, if you didn't get what you needed in the last 3 weeks, 3 runs of FAAB, and you managed to miss out on all of these closers, or if you still need one more, here comes another one.
Exactly. That's the thing. Applying to your strategy, this might be, the whole point is it's not just the first week after the trade deadline. It's every week down the stretch run that we've got that as an issue.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Like it's like I said, some of it could be the week before the trade. You get a few factors playing in, right? Like you get the trade deadline itself. First of all, you get speculation before the trade deadline, the last week or two of July. Then you get the actual trade deadline, and the trade deadline, because it's on a Tuesday, almost covers 2 FAAB runs. I find now you get a handful of trades on the weekend, and then you get the Sunday FAAB run, and then you get the final tidal wave of trades, and then you get next Sunday's FAAB run. So there's 2 FAAB runs right there. And then you get kind of the next week, you get the dust settles from the trade deadline FAAB run, where maybe we all chased AJ Puck, but it's actually Justin Martinez. And then I was
just going to mention the Diamondbacks next, and what a disaster it has been trying to speculate on them, because it's someone different every time. And to varying degrees of success, for that matter.
That's right. And maybe with Justin Martinez, they found someone, because even though he walks batters a bit, like he has one of the better ground ball rates in baseball, and with his sinker, and you get a lot of ground balls, you can get out of a lot of trouble. So Justin Martinez gave up some runs near the end of July, hasn't given up any earned runs since, a couple unearned runs in there. So he's on a nice run this year. ERA below 2. He could maybe Paul Sewell gets the job back, but Martinez again was pretty cheap in leagues, either the Sunday after the trade deadline or the following Sunday after that, and he was pretty cheap in leagues. And you could have I wouldn't call him maybe a tier 1 closer, but a tier 2 closer the rest of the way.
Yeah, you could.
We've named so many already, and there's still more.
Well, but wait, there's more, and we're going to talk about those. But first, quick note from our sponsor, DraftKings, and their Pick 6 app. Did you ever play the over-under game with your friends? Think I can eat that slice of pizza in under 30 seconds? Or I know it'll take you over a minute to down that 2-liter? If you have, then you're going to love Pick 6, the new fantasy game from DraftKings. Here's how to play during baseball season. Pick between 2 and 6 players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat, like runs, hits, strikeouts, and more. Track your picks and play against others for a shot to win huge cash prizes. That's all there is to it. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code RWPicks. New customers play $5 and get 50 in Pick 6 credits. That's code RWPicks for new customers to play $5 and get 50 in Pick 6 credits, only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 18 plus in most eligible states. Not available in all states, including New York and Connecticut. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. All right. We're also on the Blue Wire Network. Those were their ads. Thank you, everybody, for indulging us there. Last night, Evan Phillips got the save for the Dodgers, giving me a good little chuckle because I just dropped Evan Phillips in my main event league after finally thinking he was the number 3 guy. Michael Kopech's been so good, but all of a sudden he wasn't available for a couple of days.
Yeah, I thought of you when that happened, because you even announced on the podcast with Scott that you told me, but you announced to everyone that you had sadly sent Evan Phillips off your roster, who had been pitching really well, but as you said, hadn't had a save in almost a month. And then he gets a save.
Second I drop him. Literally the second after I drop him.
First game, not on your team, he picks up a save. That has been a situation that is still really cloudy, and that has been so cloudy that it's almost like there's been so many save sources available that you don't have to mess around with the Dodgers. bullpen, like you can, because all these
Mhm.
relievers are actually doing well. I was gonna say they're all good. Michael Kopech, we would have said a month ago, isn't good, but he's been good, and of course he's been good. He leaves the White Sox, he joins the Dodgers. Of course now he's good, but he probably will be good the rest of the way. So that's been one where it's been enough of a committee that, and
Right.
there's been so many like Walker, etc., so many not committee options that I've just mostly been able to look past the Dodgers situation. But again, there's a real chance that either Phillips or Kopech or someone settles into that role down the stretch and gets a bunch of saves.
Right. And specifically on Phillips, I heard on the broadcast last night, he's dished his cutter, the pitch that was getting lit up. He was perfect last night. In 9 of 13 pitches for strikes. All three pitchers had pitched on Sunday. So, but Kopech needed rest. He said, Dave Roberts said that on Sunday that Kopech is gassed and to be held out of pitching for a few days. So, it's his fastball was 2 miles an hour slower on Sunday. So I think Kopech is still going to get a lot of chances there. And that's the thing that's going to be a little frustrating as we're trying. I just don't think there's going to be just one guy.
Yeah, and early in the season, I maybe would have messed around with it because I might feel like I had to. But right now, unless I've just had no FAAB or have totally struck out on the waiver wire, I feel like I can probably find situations where there is basically one guy.
Yeah,
like maybe the Cubs by Sunday. Maybe like if Hodge gets another save, then you know what I mean. Like you're like, oh, I'd rather have him.
Or like one county down from the Dodgers in Orange County and the Angels and Ben Joyce, who after a lot of subterfuge, he's the guy now.
He is. The problem that he has is that the Angels just never win. So
there is
or rarely win. They did actually win tonight. There was no save to be had tonight, but they have 2 wins in their last 10 games, 8 games, 2 wins in their last 8 games. So he's got a save in one of them. He has their only save since August 6th. So
had one on Friday against the Braves.
That's right. That's their only save in the last 2 weeks. I do think it's safe to say that he's their closer or their primary closer. Again, there's another one. We kind of saw him coming. He was picked up in a lot of leagues in late July. So as part of the plan we talked about at the beginning, he would have been someone who you grabbed, thinking like, okay, maybe the trade deadline opens up a spot for him. And here it did. And he hasn't been like, he walks too many batters too, and the whip's not low. Like he's not a tier 1 closer, and the Angels kind of stink. So, but he's still someone, again, with safe chances of being fixed. Like he's still someone who would be in your lineup in a 15 team. He'd be in your lineup in a 12 if you needed saves. If we're talking about a guy who you're trying to catch up in saves and he's your third closer, he's totally fine.
Yeah. So the question then becomes like, how much do you want to spend time on the truly bad teams? Like if you just ignored the White Sox all year, you're fine. You didn't, you got a couple of Kopech saves, but you missed out on a couple of blowups too. You miss it. You forget about the Rockies. Always a good strategy. But then again, you miss out on Mason Miller, and that's something that would have, Mason Miller has been profitable this year, to say the least.
Oh yeah, to say the least, for sure. And even jumping back to the Rockies for a minute, I am in a league where Victor Vodnik, he might still be on waivers in a 15. Like nobody wants to pick him up. He has 7 saves in the second half. And his ratios in the second half, his ERA's in the 3s. I think his whip's a little high. Like he's not killing you with the amount of innings he pitches in ratios. And he's got 7 saves in the second half, which has been about 6 weeks or so. So he's been okay. I refuse to pick him up. I'm not going to be there when the other shoe drops. And again, it's all part of the fact that with these other closers emerging, I don't need to grab him. I can chase some players on better teams and better situations. But you're right. You would have missed out on Mason Miller. I will mostly. The White Sox are another level of bad, and then the Rockies combine being bad with Coors, which is too much for me. Other than those 2 teams, like I'll chase a closer on a not very good team. Like I would chase Calvin Fauché or Foucher, depending on how you want to pronounce it.
No,
I'm not chasing him, but at the same time, like I was in a league where we were probably good 3 FAAB runs after the deadline before someone finally picked him up because he's not getting a lot of saves because the Marlins stink. But if I really need to catch up in saves, like I would take a shot at him. He's not killing your ratios this year.
No, that's for sure. So yeah, that's I think that, so maybe you don't. Maybe that the conclusion is don't ignore the bad teams. Although maybe it's just you ignore the special bad teams. Maybe that's it. But the thing is, like, and then there's I think the corollary is, do you want to ignore the true committees, the Phillies, maybe the Twins and the Mariners? Although sometimes we keep on thinking, one guy is going to be the main guy there. But like the Phillies, if you didn't spend draft capital on the Phillies relief pitchers this year, you're probably okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you start, when you get into the committees, you're right. You can go sometimes a long time where you're putting a guy in your lineup for a couple weeks and not getting a save, just timing and things like that. Jeff Hoffman's pitched amazing this year. It hasn't killed you to have him in your lineup, but at the same time, he's got 9 saves. Like, right. We're close to September. He's got 9 saves. He's probably going to finish the season with 10 or 11 saves. He's got 3 wins. Like, you haven't got a ton out of him other than you've gotten good ratios. You're going to get 85 strikeouts or something like that. One of the things I was thinking back to Miller, maybe a general rule of thumb should be don't chase mediocre relievers on bad teams if they're the closers. The difference between Mason Miller is, like, he had the potential to be a dominant closer. So you can overcome the fact that the A's aren't going to give him a ton of saves by him producing, great ratios, a humongous strikeout total, things like that. Calvin Fauché, Victor Vodnik, like, these guys are on teams as bad as the A's, but they're not special pitchers. Right. So, maybe Mason Miller's been better than any of us probably thought he was going to be, but there was at least the potential. Like, we knew he was a really talented pitcher. So if you're going to chase a closer on a bad team, you better make sure he's at least a good pitcher.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely right. Any other closer situations did we step over that we want to talk about?
So, one that I think has been a little bit profitable and has the potential to be more profitable. Lucas Erceg.
Yes. Royals. Yes.
He didn't get the save. He's the same boat as Walker, where Erceg pitched 1 2/3 innings on Sunday, and then therefore wasn't available to get a save yesterday. So I'm not concerned that he didn't get a save for the Royals yesterday. I think he is emerging as their closer. He still hasn't given up a run since he joined the Royals. Hunter Harvey had another setback today. In his bid to get off the IL. So he's probably out for a little while longer. So, I mean, typically you'd think Royals closer, meh, but like now, the Royals are a team with a winning record, chasing the postseason. Urseg's been pitching really well. Again, he could easily be a top 10 closer the rest of the way.
Yeah. So, I like that.
Yeah. So there's another one that's emerged. Chad Green, you'd have to go back a little sooner. He was more like mid-July that he kind of, or like mid-July was when we really became like sure that the Blue Jays were going to trade Yimi Garcia, that Green was probably going to stay, was going to be last man standing in that bullpen. And he is. And he's actually been totally fine for the Jays. He gives up the odd run. Like, he's not a lights out closer, but he's plenty good enough. I think he'll be the closer for the rest of the season. I think he's a top 20 or so closer the rest of the way. So there's another one. So I don't know how many, let me see, just off the top of my head, we named 1, 2, 3. I won't even count the White Sox because we kind of glossed over them, and for good reason. 4, we did not talk about the Tigers. 5,
let's talk
6,
Tigers.
7, 8. Well, I can't count and talk about Tigers. 9, 10. We're at about a dozen teams that we've talked about so far. We haven't talked Tigers, but that's about a dozen teams where you could have been fishing for saves in the last month. Yeah. Okay. The Tigers.
Yeah, so the whole key is you're going to have to get volume of them. You're going to have to get 4 or 5 of them and probably have to be right on at least 75%, just FAAB wise, but and time wise. Every week that you miss is a big setback. That's the thing. You need to get those saves in those weeks. So they've been another one of those teams that have truly been all over the map all season long. That it's it started off. Remember on they're the guy that started as a closer is not even on the team anymore. That's part of the issue. But it was Jason Foley for a while. Shelby Miller has gotten saves. It kind of looks like it's Tyler Holton right now. Not like the most dominant pitcher by any stretch. 55 Ks in 70 innings, but also only 13 walks. Good ratios, great ratios. 2 years running now. 211, 087 last year. Even got, an 85 whopping innings, no less. This year, 255, 083. He does have 4 saves now.
How about that? The Tigers' last 5 saves have been spread amongst 5 different pitchers.
Yeah.
Now, one of them's a 15-1 win, so I should really throw it out.
If
So
that's a 3-inning jobber, yep.
Yeah, so it's 4 saves. So Jason Foley got the last one on last Thursday, a 2-1 win over Seattle. Before that, Will Vest, a 5-4 win over San Francisco. Holton got the save before that, a 4-2 win over Seattle. And then before that, we had to go back about 10 days, and Shelby Miller got a save in a 3-0 win against Cleveland. So this one seems to be like the ultimate of committees at the moment. Who's going to get the next one? I feel like that one's more up in the air than the Dodgers. I would rather roster Fauché. I'd rather roster Vodnik if I needed saves. I'd rather just cross my fingers. The Rockies are on the road now for a while, so he's at least away from Coors. I'd rather roster him, any of the Dodgers. I think that one is maybe the least desirable bullpen in baseball right now. I guess other than the White Sox, it's the least desirable when you factor in just how much they're spreading around the saves, and the fact that this is a team that's like, this is not the Orioles spreading on saves. I mean, they're not the worst team, but they're also far.
I was just gonna say they're not bad either.
They're okay.
Yeah. They're not a bad team. They're a thorough mid team in my opinion.
Yeah, they're like just under 500. Yeah, for sure. But if they're not good enough to spread their saves around. You know, it's just so many relievers right now, and there seems to be so little rhyme or reason to it. So it may be, like I say, other than the White Sox, even the Rays, I may go with. If Uceta gets a save tonight, I would.
He did get the save, by the way.
There you go. So I'll take him over any of the Tigers. So yeah, so there's another. So Uceta and Hodge in a lot of leagues. There's 2 more relievers to bid on.
Yeah, Uceta got 4 outs tonight. I look forward to him not pitching again until like Saturday.
Totally. And then he comes in the 6th inning.
Yeah.
But
that's the Rays. But the Rays do Rays things.
Yeah. Typically it works. Not this year so much, but typically it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
News and notes. Let's talk about a couple of things real quick. Sure. I want to talk a little about the Dodgers. They've got Max Muncy back now. They got Gavin Lux is starting to hit. They got Tommy Edman available all of a sudden. Quickly, this team is becoming a lengthy lineup. Now I'm worried about Freddie Freeman and that finger or that wrist. So that's one thing I know. Freeman's back in the lineup today, so we'll see. Maybe he's okay. But all of a sudden, they've got their lineup now. Edman's playing short tonight. Yeah, we'll see what he can do over the course of the season. But if he's even anywhere close, an approximation to his form, his average form, not like a playing hurt sort of form, but all of a sudden that's like a 8-man lineup all of a sudden, and then you can handle a guy like Kevin Kiermaier batting 9th.
Yeah, for sure. The lineup's starting to look long again. Like they need Will Smith to get going. Teoscar's actually cooled off. They need him to get going again. But again, ebbs and flows of the season. He's had a good season overall. Muncy homering in his first game back, I think, is notable. I mean, Muncy, he's someone who I felt like in my fantasy leagues on Sunday, there was like no buzz on Muncy coming back. He was on waivers in some leagues. He had 200 combined runs and RBIs last year. Like, I know he's not a batting average guy, but like 200 combined runs and RBIs last year, and he's coming off the IL, and I felt like there was no buzz on him. So he's hit 7th his first couple games back. I could easily see him hitting 4th or 5th in the lineup if he has a good week. All of a sudden that lineup starts to get pretty long, where you have to get past that, really difficult top 3, and then you start coming into Teoscar to Muncy. Hopefully Will Smith gets back on track. Yeah, the lineup, the Dodgers' problem now won't be the lineup. It'll be and Gavin Stone had a great start for them on yesterday on Monday. So
that was huge. Albeit against the Mariners, so you have to kind of grade on a curve there a little bit. Mariners, even on the road, aren't that good of a lineup there.
No, and they strike out so much. So their strikeouts I take, but still it's 10. Like, it was 10 strikeouts. You should get an extra strikeout or 2 against the Mariners. 10's really good. Yeah. So I mean, Glass now being gone is a big problem, but they just need the pitching by October. I know they need to win the division still, but the lineup's starting to look really good.
Yeah. And that's going to be something to watch for there. We'll see, because the Padres are losing tonight. They rallied to tie the Twins and then fell back behind here in the 8th. So that one's 5-3 Minnesota in the 8th, costing Bailey over a win. But that's all right there. Muncy, by the way, homered again tonight too. And Lux has really woken up since the All-Star break. In a perfect timing for that. But that's the thing is like the Dodgers went through that horrible July stretch. They're still in first, but they can't relax. That's the thing. So that's one that's offshoot is, you're going to see all their starters play a little bit deeper into the season too.
Yes, because winning the division matters a lot right now, especially if you could win the division, and finish at the top of the National League, which is all possible for them. So, yeah, so I think the way the standings are in both leagues right now, like you're not going to see teams really take their foot off the gas
right
until the last week of the season. Maybe
except for the Brewers.
Yeah, maybe the Brewers, but most teams will be going for some sort of seeding, right up until the last few days of the season, which is great for fantasy.
Seriously, though, the Brewers have just left the rest of the NL Central in the dust. 11 and a half games. They've won 6 in a row now. They're without, they traded away Corbin Burns. Yelich has been out a good chunk of the season, is now out for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. And here they are just running away.
Yeah. I mean, their goal now can be, this is what I was saying, their goal now can be to try to win the National League. They win in right now. They're half a game behind. They're tied with the Phillies, half a game behind the Dodgers at this moment. So,
yep.
And that would be huge for them especially with their pitching staff, which is not very deep. Like Frankie Montas had a great start tonight, but it's not a deep pitching staff. If they could get a bye through the first round, and just save that pitching staff and get it ordered, that would be really huge for them, just with the lack of depth that they have. I really don't think the Brewers have what it would take, even if they finish first in the National League, to go win the World Series, but it would be really instrumental to them. So you'll see teams pushing for this, I think, all the way down to the finish line.
Yeah. Mention of the Braves, Grant Holmes getting the win after Reynaldo Lopez got 10 Ks. The only problem with Grant Holmes, I think he is really good, but he's in the bullpen. He doesn't have a role. So yeah, he got the win tonight, but how often can you count on that? So that's tough. Other question for you, by the way. Is there going to be a 600 team this year in baseball? No one is right now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you've got in the National League, you've got 3 teams at 580, over 580. And in the American League, you've got 2. The Yankees basically are, they're 579. So you've got 6 teams in baseball, basically all around 580 to 585. So yeah, I think one of those teams will be a 600 team.
Yeah.
But barely. And maybe 2 will be a 600 team, but barely.
And maybe because they have to fight for their positioning, that's why they'll get to 600. Is because they're going to have to keep fighting it out.
Right. Yes. It would be wild if at the end of the year there were 2 600 teams and they were Cleveland and Milwaukee.
Right.
And that could totally happen.
It's just so wild.
Yeah.
And they'll be like big betting underdogs to win the World Series too.
Absolutely. And probably rightfully so. When you look at their rosters, not that their rosters are terrible, but they don't scream, amazing roster. By the way, with it, jumping back to Atlanta for a minute, man, Austin Riley's now out for probably the rest of the regular season.
Yes.
Is the Braves lineup one to fear now? I look at that lineup, so I still have people tell me, with pitchers, they'll be like, oh, but they're facing the Braves. And I'm like, yeah, have you noticed that the Braves are slightly below average in runs scored this year, and they don't have Acuna, and they,
I was just going to say, they haven't been one to fear since April.
I know. But they did have at least the name power, no Acuna, but the rest of the names, so you're like, okay, they're going to wake up. Man, the 6 through 9 in that lineup now, Kelnick, Arcia, Urshela, who just got there today, and Whit Merrifield, and Jorge Soler at the top of the lineup, or somewhere. Maybe Jorge Soler's down at the bottom of that, and there's the bottom 5. Really, this lineup, Michael Harris, Ozuna's having an amazing year. Take nothing away from him.
Right.
Matt Olson, Sean Murphy hasn't had a great year.
No. And Riley wasn't good even before the injury. I mean, not to his standards.
Yeah. No, I know. Oh, definitely not. But he was just another guy who had the potential. They're sitting in a playoff spot right now, but man, the hits keep coming to them. And we'll see if the Mets or the Giants, they're the 2 teams that are the closest to them. If one of those teams can jump up and catch them. Actually, after the Mets and the Giants, by the way, the third team is the Cubs. That's actually the closest to them. When I was saying the Cubs, blah, 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 not in contention, they're actually not.
They're not out of it yet.
They're not totally out of it yet.
They're 5.5 out. There's been some separation now.
Yeah.
The Padres and Diamondbacks are looking pretty safe now. Although you never know. Injuries can hit them like they hit the Braves too. You never know.
Right.
But
yeah.
Going back to the Braves offense, they've scored fewer runs than the Giants. That's how non-threatening their offense is. The difference though is the Braves have only allowed 488 runs. That's pretty wild. I mean, that's as good. I think is that the best in the National League? Yeah, it is. The Brewers have allowed 490 runs. The Braves have allowed 488. So it's all run prevention this year. And in fact, that's the best in baseball. No, second best. The Mariners are the best at 475. I missed that.
That's right. Yeah. So if you go by ERA, the Mariners are first. The Brewers are actually second. They've pitched a couple more innings, amount of, but either way, they've the same amount of games. And then it's the Braves and the Cubs. Are both at 3.69 ERAs. So, So the Braves have pitched themselves into this spot. They have effective bullpen, good rotation. But as far as using pitchers against them and worrying about the lineup, I'm not saying the Braves won't have some good games, but they're a mid-pack. They're 16th in baseball. Like you said, the Giants are ahead of them. The Reds are ahead of them. Like they're 16th in the majors in runs scored. They are They have been an average offense.
Yep.
So far this season.
Kind of note on the Cardinals, who are circling down the drain right now. They've lost 8 out of 10, 2 in a row. Smallest crowd ever at the new Busch Stadium tonight against the Brewers, according to one of the writers covering them, Katie Wu. They're still the best fans in baseball. There are just fewer of them this time. But can you blame them? Of course not. You can't blame them for that. I mean, this team is hugely disappointing 2 years in a row.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think their big thing this year, like you've got Paul Goldschmidt hitting 7th in the lineup. Like that's taken, like he just didn't have the year that I think that they were expecting from him. Everything about the Cardinals this year has just been so, other than maybe Sonny Gray, like everything else has just been so, I guess Ryan Helsley's having a great year, but it's just a closer. Like you got to get to him. Like just so many things there are just so mediocre. Like Nolan Gorman continues not to really do much. Lars Nootbaar, like Brendan Donovan, like he gets on base a bit, but he doesn't really do much. Nolan Arenado has 13 home runs.
Yeah.
Like holy smokes. Like Nolan Arenado is not going to hit 20 home runs this year.
I look at their roster and I think they should be better than they are. Like compare comment there, the Cards are in better shape than the Reds. Yeah, you compare side by side the roster, they should be a lot better, but they're a game better? The Reds swept them last week, and for a lot more money too, while they're at it there. But
I don't know if they should be better than the Reds because no one on the Cardinals is really good.
Sonny Gray's really good.
Yeah, he's good. But Hunter Green was good for the Reds up until
true.
Just playing on the IL and things like that. Like Ellie De La Cruz is awesome. Like he's really good. I just feel like no one on like Spencer Steers had a really nice season. I feel like
he's been fine
for the Reds. He's been good. I don't know. I just feel like no one on the Cardinals. Alec Burleson, he's been their best hitter this year.
He's been good. I like Burleson.
Yeah, he's solid.
Jordan Walker non-development is a big story for that team.
Yeah, sent back down to the minors today.
Yeah.
So there goes any. I mean, he could be back in September, but I feel like they're kind of giving up on him. Yeah, I don't know. I just again feel like everything about the Cardinals is just so average.
Yeah.
Miles Michaelis, Kyle Gibson, Lance.
What did you possibly expect out of Miles Michaelis anyhow? But Gibson, and Gibson too, really for that matter. They'll have their good games. They're useful. See that's the problem is they're very useful 4th and 5th starters, especially Gibson, I think. But they're being counted on to be a little bit more.
Before they got Eric Fetty, I felt like their rotation was Sonny Gray and then 4 4th or 5th starters.
Yeah.
Which again in baseball, like if they're competent 4th or 5th starters, they can get you to around 500.
And that usually works in the NL Central too.
Yeah.
By the way, it has for 20 years.
I think just in the end, they're a mediocre team that's just on a bad run right now.
And Goldschmidt and Arenado declined quicker than they expected to. And
the Goldschmidt drop off, like Goldschmidt, like you think of Goldschmidt, you think of these massive on base percentages, and he's got a 290 this year. Like that's just I thought a bad on base percentage from Goldschmidt this year would be like 340 or something like that, but he's declined so fast.
And that's why Walker not working out really has hurt this team, because they needed the next gen to come in. Tyler O'Neill, got into the conflict with the manager, and they let him go on the cheap to the Red Sox. These were part of the next generation of players, and it just didn't work out.
Yes,
and
actually, yes, like how we said that they were a rotation of 4th and 5th starters. The way their players have played this year, a lot of their lineup is a lineup of number 7 hitters.
Yeah, Mason Wynn's pretty good, as was pointed out in the chat.
Okay.
Really good defensive player.
Yep.
The rest of the team isn't very good defensively, is kind of a part of the other problem. By the way, the Padres are now up 7-5. Remember, they were down 5-3 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Jurickson Profar just hit his 20th homer.
Okay.
There
you go. The Padres they have the opposite of the Cardinals. They have found their groove. I feel like Jurickson Profar has really cooled off. I was a little bit right on that. He had 1 home run and was hitting 203 in August until that.
And yet, yes. But look at the overall number line: 290, 387, 474, 387 OBP. That's pretty good.
Amazing. Yes. And I guess this is the opposite again. This is the opposite of the Cardinals. Like the Padres have some guys like Profar overachieving. The Cardinals mostly just have some key guys underachieving, and then some other guys just kind of like Donovan and stuff, just meeting expectations. But those guys weren't supposed to be the key guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to wrap it up here. We did outlast my fantasy draft, just barely.
Okay.
We got through a 17th round in about 12 seconds there, but it was so funny. I thought I was going to have 2 rounds left after the end of this podcast, but we finished it up here. Thanks everybody for chiming in. Really appreciate everybody chiming in late August here, and we're still getting active chat. Really appreciate everybody in here. We'll keep going. If you liked what you heard, please check us out on RotoWire, rotowire.com/pod. Also, please hit that like. Please subscribe to the podcast, which is free. Get notified for all that. And again, check out RotoWire, rotowire.com/pod. Check out Fred's work on Yahoo too while we're at it too, please. We got James Anderson tomorrow. Thanks again for listening to RotoWire. Take care.